Today we are with Paige Arnof-Fenn. She is the founder and CEO of Mavens Moguls, which is a global strategic marketing consultant firm, and she has been doing really amazing things with the companies large and small. So we're going to talk to her a little bit about her product launches and branding strategies and kind of how you can take some tips and tricks home with you today. So Paige, I asked you before, we're kind of in this social media craze, and I really wanted you to kind of explain in a tweet how your firm is unique, because you're not the typical marketing firm at all.
No, we're not, and it's very funny because I'm not personally on Twitter, but I follow a lot of people just to kind of keep my fingers in a lot of different pies. So that was a great question that you asked, and what I came up with was real world marketing experience plus passion plus chemistry plus depth equals results. So that's under 140 characters, but it pretty much explains what it is that we do.
Yeah.
So I've got a network of seasoned marketing professionals who have a lot of experience. On average, people have been doing marketing for about 20 years. So you're actually tapping into this breadth and depth of really great marketing expertise. And we're all very passionate about marketing, and we love what we do. And ultimately, when you tap into this network, you're getting all the experience and energy and enthusiasm that ultimately leads to great results for the clients that we work with.
Absolutely, and I think it's so interesting because you really do, you work with so many different professionals that have this huge experience in marketing and all these really interesting companies, but you also kind of take different, approaches to marketing. So your clients aren't necessarily, you know what I mean, like you're not doing huge campaigns for them. You could be doing anything from consultant work to product launches to a lot of different things.
Exactly. It's, we're kind of a marketing department in a box. So they can use us in any way they need. Sometimes we are the marketing department, and sometimes we're an extension of their own team in-house. So we can help with PR, market research, websites, copywriting, brochures, product launches. Because of the network, I've got about 4 people that live in 14 cities in the US and a bunch of major metro areas overseas. So we can just form teams based on what the clients need, and they only pay for what they need. So if they don't need market research, they don't have to tap into that part of the group. They can just pay for the stuff that they value most.
I think that's really amazing. I think it's so critical, especially in the economic times that we were facing. I think that there's a little bit more spending available now, but a few years ago budgets were really tight, so that must have been something that you saw really boom and make your business
So
grow.
what's really interesting, I started the company 10 years ago, right after 9/11, when the world was kind of completely lost, and marketing was the first thing that got cut pretty much universally with companies when they needed to find more budget dollars. So I started the company in a real crisis mode in the economy, and as companies started to need more marketing advice and support, they tapped into our network for help. Then things started to pick up, and we were really on an uptick for several years. But then about 3.5 years ago, things got pretty crazy again with the financial markets going crazy. So what ended up happening during the recession and the downturn in the economy, I felt like because we had a very good track record, we had been working for about 7 years at that point. We had a lot of great client testimonials, a lot of referrals, a lot of great success under our belt. When the recession hit and companies had to rethink their whole marketing strategy and plans, we were very fortunate. I joke that we kind of moved up the food chain during the recession because a lot of companies still needed a lot of marketing help, but they didn't have the big budgets that they had before the recession, and so they could use us on a modular kind of piecemeal basis. And once we got that relationship and that confidence and started showing them some traction, as they started to do better and their business started picking up, they could invest more money with us to do better marketing. So we were very fortunate. We picked up some very large companies during the recession, people that we had talked to before the recession that loved us but ended up always going back to their incumbent agencies. They used us to kind of negotiate with their existing relationships, but during the recession they had to tear up their contracts and start fresh. And we ended up getting business from Microsoft and Constant Contact, like big public companies that used to work with very large agencies that ended up hiring us during the recession. So, you know, I think when the economy's booming, you know the quote that says, you know, when the tide is high, all boats float higher. But I think when the tide drops, that's when you start to see companies kind of change pecking order in you know, in the market. And we really moved up the food chain during the recession. So I feel very fortunate that we really did great over the last few years and actually picked up even more marquee clients during the downturn, not fewer.
I think that's a really good point, and I think that really says something about the services you offer. And you recently contributed to an ebook titled "The One Piece of Advice You Can't Sell Without." And I mean, there are so many things, as you had pointed out, that go into successful selling. You know, reputation, referrals, and you know, chemistry, expertise. But you had mentioned that you think the root of your success is authenticity. And I think that, you know, you do have a very unique company and you have a unique business model and you offer something that most companies won't offer, you know, to clients. So I think that says something, and I think authenticity is important, especially when you saw a lot of people back away from the bigger companies because they lost trust in them.
Yeah.
So I think authenticity and credibility kind of, you know,
go
float
hand
in the
hand.
same boat.
Yeah.
So what do you think really makes an authentic company? What makes you so authentic? What makes people get that vibe from you?
So I think authenticity really comes down to staying true to your core values. What is it that's important to you? And one thing that we always say is that everything you do communicates. It's not just a brochure that you might put together. It's everything that you touch communicates something about you. So in terms of core values, I look at, what do I want to stand for? What do I want to be known for? What's really important to me? I believe, you know, dearly that marketing really matters. That's my tagline, because marketing matters. And I want to share my passion, my love for marketing to help companies that might otherwise be invisible, to help get the visibility and awareness they deserve. I'd like to think that, you know, our brand, if you will, the Mavens business stands for being very generous and open, inclusive, warm, and again, sharing that passion that myself and my team have for marketing. And that everything we do reflects that everything we do shows integrity and honesty. So whether you look at my website, whether you see a brochure we might have done, when you look at who our clients are, who my colleagues are, everything should reflect those core values that you stand for. If I work for companies that I don't believe in, or if I have people on my team that I don't think are true to that brand, it's not a good reflection on the Mavens brand. So I really try to just be very consistent in everything that we do to reflect those core values that are important to me.
That's so important, and I definitely think that, you know, those core values shine through, and if you can really stay true to that, not only does it help your brand, but your clients will really, really take to that and really start liking you. And I think that no matter what, you know, people say, you are your own brand, and that is very true. I think that, you know, everything you do and the people you work with reflects on everything.
Absolutely.
Else.
That's it. That's authenticity at its core.
Yeah. So that's great, and I think it's very refreshing to hear. I think that's really, you know, it's exciting to hear, and I think that it kind of gives you a bright outlook on the future, that, you know, we do have to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, that's one reason for success. But I think one of the articles you wrote about was really interesting. It was titled "Failing Your Way to Success."
Yeah.
And I think you always hear about, you know, what makes this person successful, or, you know, the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. And I think that, you know, I think that's great. I think that success should be talked about and it should be celebrated. But there's another side that you wrote about specifically, saying, you know, failure and success are part of the same journey.
Exactly.
And
you can't have one without the other. I think there's no, if anyone is really being honest, they can't tell you about their success without also sharing their failure. And I think people really resonate. They admire you and respect you for being honest about, you know, the bumps and the bruises along the way. And I think that failure and success are tied one and the same. And the truth is, I don't necessarily believe in failure at its core, because if you learn from that experience, if you screw up or you know, you hit a bump in the road and you learn from it and then you don't do that again, you didn't really fail, you just learned something new that helped you for the next achievement and the next milestone. So, you know, one thing that I always tell students that I coach and mentor is, if you asked any successful person, anyone you admire, to do two versions of their resume. One where they highlight every success and tell you every great thing that happened, but they could probably also give you the mirror resume that shows you every failure along the way. When they got laid off, when they didn't get the promotion, they didn't get the raise, they got into a fight with their boss. Everybody's got both those stories, and on your resume you choose to highlight the positives. But I think anyone that's being honest could tell you the parallel version of that resume. And everybody's got those bumps in the road, and I think they're kidding if they don't come clean on that. And you know, one of my very first clients with Mavens Moguls, it was in my first 6 months of business. Again, I don't look at it as a failure, but it was definitely a bump in the road. We had a client who paid us $10,000 a month for our services, that put us on retainer. And the guy was such a jerk. He was really not a nice guy. And the better we did, the more business we got him, the more successful he became, the bigger jerk he became. And I decided about 3 months into the project that it was not the kind of client I wanted to have, because it made me frustrated. It was making my team really sad, because he was never appreciative or never admitted the role that we were playing in his success. So about 3 months into the year-long engagement, I had a meeting with him face to face and said, I don't think this is working out. I think we need to shake hands and part ways. And he said to me, are you firing me as a client? And I said, yeah, I guess I am. And I don't see that as a failure, because we won the business fair and square. We had a lot of success with him as a client, even though the guy was a jerk. But I realized if I invested more of my energy and my team's energy into clients like that, I would attract more clients like that. The guy was a jerk. I'm sure his friends were jerks, and people that saw his business, you know, improving would be like, wow, he's a jerk, and look what a great job she did for him. Maybe she could do a great job for me, because I'm not as much of a jerk as that guy is. And I thought, you know, it's my company, it's my brand, it's my business, the buck stops here. And we literally tore up the contract, shook hands, parted ways. And what it did is it sent a great signal to my team that we're not going to put up with clients like that. We want positive clients with positive energy. And it also freed us up. It's kind of a feng shui thing. When you get rid of the clutter and the junk, it opens the opportunities for better clients to come in. And we ended up replacing this jerk client with several really great clients. And you know, again, I don't see it as a failure. I see it as a critical milestone on the path to my success.
Absolutely. I really like how you kind of use the term feng shui, and I think although it might be cliche, I think that, you know, that law of energy, positive thinking yields positive results, and it's really true. I think, you know, positive actions also bring positive results. I think positive people bring other positive people.
Exactly.
So it's all about, you know, attracting what you want, and that also says something about authenticity, I think, you know what I mean? Even
you have to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You know, it wasn't about the retainer. You know, I knew I could make money in better ways. It was a deal with the devil for me. It just wasn't worth the hassle and the angst that I felt knowing that this guy was on contract to pay us this money. It wasn't worth the trade-off to me.
And taking a step back and kind of putting yourself really into your shoes when you were had to make that decision. All right, this is
It was
business,
scary because I was a 6-month-old company. I was a brand new company.
It's a risk.
And it is a huge risk, and I didn't know how it was going to turn out. But I think, again, you tap into those core values. What's important to you? What do you want to be known for? What do you want to stand for? And you just have to have kind of faith that karma works and that, it's going to come back in a very positive way, and in fact it did.
It absolutely has, and you know what I mean. I think your authenticity stands true today, and you have had a lot of success 10 years into your company. You have had 100 marketing research projects, 50 international brand strategies, and product launches for Fortune 500 companies and emerging companies.
Exactly,
so
which I love. I love the variety and the spectrum of companies we've been able to help because we're a scrappy firm. We can dial up or dial down. We've worked for Delta Airlines and Virgin, Richard Branson. We've worked for the New York Times. We've worked for Colgate, the toothpaste company. But we've worked for a lot of early stage startups too, and I love the variety.
And that variety is so interesting because you get to work with a lot of different brands, you get to work with a lot of different people, and you get to work at a lot of different stages. So I think you're always
keeps your skills fresh.
Yeah, because you're always challenged and you're always thinking. And so you must see a lot of differences within these companies, but you also must see a lot of similarities. So, in your experience, you've worked for, Coca-Cola, Zipcar, and now you've been working with Delta and Virgin. Richard Branson is like a brand guru. Like, I don't even know how he does it, but,
We did a couple of projects for Richard, which are really, that was a real treat.
So what makes a successful brand? How do you build that strong brand,
There are actually
Facebook?
more similarities, I think, than differences, across the different categories and different stages of business. I started my marketing career at Procter Gambl, and P&G is one of the most data-driven companies. They invented the concept of brand management, and they really train you and develop you as a leader of building a world-class brand. And at P&G, what was drilled into me from day one is that it all starts with your customer. Market research is critical to build a successful brand. It's not about what you think, it's not about what I think, it's about what does your customer think. So all great marketing is grounded in market research, in customer research. And I think where brands can go astray is they ask the wrong people. You ask your mom or your best friend or your next door neighbor, and that's not market research. Those people don't want to hurt your feelings. They don't want to tell you if something is not great. It's like, telling someone their baby's ugly. No one's going to do that. So you have to ask people that are not emotionally connected to you, that just want to give you honest feedback. So that is like one of the core tenets of building a great brand. So it all starts with market research. And then through the research, you learn about what the right words and pictures are to tell a compelling story. And again, you might do some concept tests and you might think it's great and you might be so proud of it, but the customer's telling you, that's not working for me. I don't like the visual, I don't like the copy, the headline's not compelling. You have to listen to that feedback. So you have to know what your target audience wants and what they need and what they already have, because no matter what category you compete in, customers are getting by without you already. So how do they solve their problem today? What products and services do they use today that are already solving that problem? So they already have something there. What is it that they're missing? What is it that they still feel like you could improve on? So again, really digging in and getting the nuance of who your target audience is. And it's not really one audience. A lot of times it's a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary audience. And they're going to be different hot buttons and triggers and motivators for each of those people. Some of them play a gatekeeper role, some of them play an influencer role, and some of them are the ultimate decision makers. And you have to really understand all the different parts of the buying process and who influences that buying decision. So that's a very big piece of it. And then once you find the right message and the right words and pictures, you have to constantly reinforce it in everything that you do. It's about the repetition And it's constantly reinforcing those core messages. And I think where companies can go astray is they want to pick 10 things they want to reinforce. You can't pick 10. Pick 1, 2, or at the very most 3 things. And focus, focus, focus. Because I think people don't have the capacity to remember 10 reasons. They know 1, 2, at the most 3. So I always try to get my clients to really stay on message and consistently reinforce the powerful messages. And then ultimately, it's about the follow-up and the follow-through. You've got to continually execute flawlessly and do it every day with every touch point all the time. And I think if you follow those rules, no matter if you're a consumer product, a professional service, a technology firm, a nonprofit, it doesn't matter. Those are kind of tried and true, rules that you can follow, and it will serve you well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that companies are really starting to get, you see the leaders like P&G and Coca-Cola who are just constantly reinforcing their brand and their authenticity with that brand, their messages within that brand. But they also do such good, they know their audience.
But it's because they do the market research.
And
they know it's bulletproof.
And market research isn't
hard.
easy. It takes a lot of work and time.
Yeah.
To gather those, data and really understand, okay, well maybe they used to like this, but the consumer is changing now, especially with like digital media and social media. People are more vocal. People feel a little bit more gutsy, I think, to say, hey, I don't like that.
Exactly.
So I think that more than ever, you make a great point. Just know your audience and execute flawlessly after you really know your audience.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
Very important things. And you have a great article on entrepreneur.com where you can kind of share all of these tips and tricks, and they're always fun. You have lessons from mom, lessons from dad, you have everything. And I really like, you had 5 signs of starting your business. Like your article was titled, "Is it the right time to start your business?" I think, you see a lot of college kids starting these businesses, and some of them are reaching huge success. I mean, locally in Boston, we have Her Campus, the girls at Harvard who started that online magazine. And then you also have, like, on the other spectrum, Mark Zuckerberg, who, dropped out of school and, went to California, and now Facebook is doing an IPO.
Billions of dollars.
Crazy. So you hear, like, all these different stories, and it almost makes you wonder, is entrepreneurship right for me? And when do I do it if it is? So
that was the question more than anything that people asked me when I started my company after 9/11. How did you know it was the right time to start a business? And so I thought it would be a good article for Entrepreneur, because I'm sure a lot of people kind of wrestle with that question. So I came up with these 5 kind of posts, along the road of, is it time? So the first one was, it goes back to the market research. If you ask real customers real questions and get real feedback, and people are willing to vote with their wallets, they're willing to spend real money on your product or service, that's a very good sign. That's a marker that you've got a real business. Now the catch is, if you don't ask the right people and you ask them in the wrong way, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you ask your mom, is this a good business, and it's not targeting your mom, or if you ask your best friend or your neighbor or your college roommate a question, but it's kind of a loaded question. I say it's like leading the witness. If you ask, do you think my baby's ugly? Nobody's ever going to tell you, yes, your baby's ugly. So you have to ask the question in an objective way that gives the person being asked an out to say, I like this, I don't like that, this works, this doesn't work. So whether you're doing focus groups or quantitative market research surveys, you have to ask the questions in a way that are strategic and not emotional, because I think you want the real data. So that was my first tip on the road. The second one was, you have to give people the opportunity to help you. There's a line from the Jerry Maguire movie that says, help me help you. And I think, you want to create evangelists for your brand, for your business. So you have to give people the tools so that they can go out and be evangelists and spread the gospel. Tell people what's so great about your business. And that's where social media plays a huge role. If people love it and they see the value and you help them help you build your brand. So create those evangelists for your business, because you only have 2 arms and 2 legs. You need a lot of people out there spreading the word. The third one is that time flies when you're having fun. You've heard that saying a million times. And I think if you're in a day job and you're someone's employee and you're sitting at your desk and every day you're watching the clock, then you're probably not in the right job. And if you're working on your own idea after hours or on weekends and the days just fly, you look up and it's like, oh my God, how did it get to be 8 o'clock at night? I can't believe it. That's probably what you should be investing in, because that's where the time flies, because you're having a ball and it just feels natural and you're really in the zone. You're in that moment where it's like you could be anywhere and you just love every minute of your day. That's also a very good sign that you found something that is a really good fit for your skill set. And then ultimately you have to trust your gut. You have to say, is this really what makes me happy? Am I doing it for me? Am I doing it because I see this market need and there are customers out there that are dying for this product or service? Or are you doing it to make your mom proud or your dad proud? You can't do it for someone else's success. It's got to be very internally driven and motivated. So, I say in the article that when you believe in your core, that a bad day on your own is better than a good day at your desk job, you've got nothing else to lose. And I think that's true. And then ultimately, the most important thing is, are you genuinely passionate about it? Because if you're having fun and you love it, you should try it. Because if you don't, you're always going to wonder what if, shoulda, woulda, coulda. And I think if you're having a ball, you love it, you're going to learn something on that journey. You will learn something valuable. And if it's not that, you'll rechannel that energy into something else that, again, it's not a failure, it's going to get you closer to that big success. So, Facebook didn't start off with, 850 million people using it. It started off in a college dorm room with one business model, and they pivoted. And they pivoted again, and they kept tweaking and learning. They changed the name from The Facebook to Facebook. There's a lot of course correcting that goes on as you're building a brand and a successful company. And I think you just have to learn how to shuck and jive, tap dance and keep pivoting. And ultimately, if you're really psyched about it, you're just going to wake up dying to get started every morning. You're going to jump out of bed and be super passionate. And ultimately, if you're not passionate about it, why should anybody else be? So that's really that to me is the silver bullet.
Talk about, I think, karma. I mean, passion, brings other passionate people into your life. I think that also brings something to say about authenticity. I think if you're passionate about it,
it's magnetic. It attracts other people that are excited by the same things. You're going to work harder. You're going to spend more time doing it. You're going to keep being creative. Every time a door shuts, you'll look for another open door because you're so excited, just internally motivated. And that's what it takes with a startup. If you don't have that extra tank of gas to keep going, you're never going to be successful. So you've really got to tap into that passion.
So I think you kind of see a lot of trends in especially this article. Passion is definitely a huge factor, and I think that ties in with authenticity as well. I think listening, no matter what stage you are at the company, whether you're a big company, a small company, you're starting a company, listening to your audience, listening to your clients, listening to your team. It's just, it's very, very important. And then also, I think you brought up such a great point, and I think this is being talked about more and more. I think the saying is, what you're doing in your free time, you should be doing as a career.
Right. So bring your whole self to the job.
Bring your whole self to the job, and really, you are unique, and you have your own passions that you can really bring to the table, and you can really make an impact in business. by doing so. You know, I think business has gotten this negative stereotype lately that it's business is bad, and you know what I mean? Because I think that you saw a lot with the economy and the banks and Wall Street. There's just so much negative talk around it, but you know.
But there are a lot of great
good.
stories out there
There's so many
too.
great stories.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people they're solving important problems and making people's lives happier, more convenient, more fun, and anything you can do that adds joy and helps others. If you're really genuinely psyched about it, I think it's a great business, and there's probably a really interesting way to make money.
I definitely agree. You definitely are a great example of that. You know, you're definitely the atypical marketing agency, but you bring so much to the table. You have worked with amazing brands. You have shared so much knowledge. Again, your articles on entrepreneur.com are amazing. You've contributed to textbooks, and we just have to thank you for kind of giving back your passion and spreading that passion, because it is contagious.
Thank you so much. It's been fun chatting with you, Emma.
It's been great chatting with you as well.
Great.